I think that ultimately the number one challenge with that brain fog is inflammation at the end of the day. And a lot of people get that, well, I feel inflamed, my joints are painful, or I've seen results on a blood test and my CRP or my ESR have been elevated, and I get that I'm inflamed. But most of the people that have weak links in the chain breaking that aren't necessarily related to what you would associate with inflammation, joint pains or bloating or swelling, is still inflammation, even though your weak link in the chain happens to break where it's brain fog. So ultimately, I would say inflammation. And the other things I would say is obviously stress management, because that's also creating increase in your sympathetic wind up or your adrenaline and your fight or flight system, which is kind of likened to having a vehicle that's a standard vehicle with a clutch, and you're like in first gear on the highway and your engine's working so hard and you're depleting your nutrients at a very fast rate, and you can see that engine isn't kicking in. And that's the analogy I would use with what's probably going on with you. The fact that there is a relationship with the way that you're processing fat also makes me feel that gut-brain connection is definitely involved. We talk about the second brain, or we talk about our instincts in our GI tract. It makes a lot of our neurotransmitters. And when our neurotransmitters are swaying in the adrenaline, and the epinephrine, the whole sympathetic system, and there's inflammatory cytokines or immune system, those go into the blood-brain barrier, and those activate what's called microglial cells, which are what stimulate your brain's immune system, and that will create a lot of brain fog. So I'd be looking at supporting gut health. I'd be looking at resetting your circadian rhythm, coming up with different ways to manage stress, and then of course looking at intermittent fasting or different diet variations to stabilize your blood sugar.
So when you talk about resetting your circadian rhythm, talk about that a little bit more in more practical ways. So what would someone do for that?
Sure, it's a great question. So three main factors that we look at regulating circadian rhythm is number one, light and dark exposure, like we would think. So when we get up in the morning, we want to have those curtains pulled open, ideally even getting out in the sunlight and having that exposure of light. And consequently, when it gets dark out, you're protecting your exposure to that blue light, because that blue light will hit the different parts of your eye that are going to impact your melatonin release and makes your brain think that it's not nighttime anymore. And one of the best ways to reset that is go camping. If you go camping, or not glamping, but camping, and you are going to bed earlier, you're waking up earlier, and your body's resetting with the sort of the day's schedule, that's probably the best way. And very important, what I like to do is put blue blocker glasses on at night when I see it starts getting dark out. I want to remove my notifications or turn them off. I want to get as little stimuli as I can, along with not having the light hit my eye. So that's the first way. The second way is eating. And that's what's good about a compressed eating window is typically it's going to be within those hours where the light is still shining. And we're not engineered to eat in dark times unless, we had to, in terms of unforeseen attack or so forth. And I always look at the way our body has been engineered over the millennia. We never had refrigerators, we never had air conditioning, we never had light bulbs. So I think every time you eat outside of those times, in the dark times, there are signals from your body telling you that it's daytime. So really controlling the timing of your meals. And then lastly is just activity and movement. I just recently went to Colorado, and when I flew back, it was daylight savings time. So I had 3 hours of of change in my body. And one of the things that really normalized me right away was doing movement and activity. I went for a walk, I took in the sunlight, I took in the polyphenols from the environment, which is basically just chemicals in trees and so forth. And it helps your body coordinate with the signalings of the earth. So those are the three best ways I would say, with the light exposure, with the timing of your meals, and with movement in general.